What's going on, guys? Tanner back here bringing you another video, and what I got for you guys today is going to be another reaction video. What we got for you today is which basic training is actually the most brutal. This was posted November 7th of 2019, so I'm hoping this is going to be pretty cool. It looks like when I skimmed through it, it was going to be animated the entire time, so hopefully you guys are okay with that. But before we get into that, I'd just like to say thank you to everyone who supported yesterday's video. I'm going to put a little screenshot of it up here on the screen. We hit milestones like no other. I've never had a video get 300 views in the first 24 hours. We had 300 views in the first 8. The first 8 hours. That's absolutely insane to me. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been supporting the videos. That video is over, I believe, 500 views now. We're closing in on 500 views. So thank you to everyone who has been supporting. If you haven't already, though, please smash the like button on this video before we get going. Leave a comment at the end and let me know what you thought of it and which branch you think is actually the most brutal for basic training. And subscribe if you're new. Turn on the post notification bell to know when we post a video. But without further ado, let's get right into this.
The U.S. military famously operates under the motto, the more you sweat in training, the less you'll bleed in war. Its boot camps thus reflect that ideology, and overall, it sports some of the most difficult basic training that recruits anywhere in the world face. While most nations have basic training, or boot camps, for new recruits, few take the time to as thoroughly indoctrinate new recruits and weed out bad ones as the U.S. does, and with good reason. With the cost of fully training and equipping a soldier running in the hundreds of thousands, and supporting that soldier costs as much as $1.4 million during wartime, it's imperative that anyone who's not a good fit for service is drummed out as quickly as possible.
So they're not lying when they talk about how much it costs to train you and stuff like that. You have to think about it. So one, they're paying for your flights from, well, first, before when you're at MEPS, they're paying for your tests, for all of your background checks to go through. They're paying for your medical work, like your blood work, all of that stuff. They're paying for your urine tests to get done. Then they're paying for you to get your security clearances. They're paying to ship you out to basic. Then they're paying to house you, give you food, water, electricity, uniforms, haircuts, all this stuff, boots, running shoes, all your meals. That's expensive. The amount of stuff they have to get for all the courses. And then when you're done at basic, after they do all of the graduation ceremonies, which costs tons of money to put together, then they have to ship you to tech school and they have to train you there, which there's a lot of people who are civilian instructors who get paid very well to go and train you there. And after that, they have to ship you to your new base. Like, the amount of money it costs is absurd.
Yet of the 5 services, what is the toughest boot camp of them all? Today we're going to dive into boot camp.
It's going to be Marines, but
U.S. military services.
We're still going to watch.
Number 5, Air Force. The Air Force is divided as the chair force by the other services.
What is that, 5?
Armchair warriors, soldiers, sailors, and Marines would find
We're not worse than the Coast Guard, I guarantee it.
themselves at the mercy of enemy aircraft, without communications due to enemy hacking and jamming, and all but blind to the movement of the enemy. The Air Force prides itself on one thing: being the most technologically advanced fighting force on the planet. Its air and space assets are legendarily cutting edge, and no military service anywhere on Earth fields as much advanced technology as the Air Force. With its focus on technology, the Air Force focuses its basic training on discipline and focus. Every single Air Force recruit has had the words attention to detail drilled into their heads, and for good reason.
That's not wrong.
A multi-million-dollar aircraft or a space asset that costs tens of millions of dollars to launch, a single loose bolt or misplaced nut can destroy the asset and jeopardize the mission.
So, and that's not wrong. So I'm sorry I'm pausing so much. It's just I don't want to talk over the video. But if you lose a bolt or a wrench or anything on the flight line while you're working on an aircraft, they'll shut down the entire flight line until you find that tool. So that means no flights take off until you find it and you don't get to go home. So yeah, attention to detail is the main thing.
Because of the massive amount of combat data that the Air Force is responsible for and the sheer importance of its air and space assets, a lack of attention to detail can jeopardize battlefield success in a way that no other branch can match. Air Force basic training consists of 8.5 weeks, and as any other branch starts with the infamous buzz cut haircut, you'll be saying goodbye to your luxurious locks of hair and hello to a freshly buzzed head. From there, you'll focus mostly on academics, with classes on topics such as the law of armed conflict,
it's a lot of class,
and buddy care, leadership, nuclear, biological, and chemical training, and joint warfare. This doesn't mean that you'll be exempt from the infamous physical training of other branches, and you can expect an hour of morning exercise starting at 0500 hours every day,
It's
followed by a
0545.
long day of drill and classes. Number 4. Coast Guard. The U.S. Coast Guard is often overlooked, yet it too is a vital branch of the U.S. military. The mission of the Coast Guard is all in the name. They're responsible for policing U.S. maritime claims, and this can mean everything from regulating ship traffic in and out of some of the world's busiest seaports to chasing drug smugglers across the high seas. In wartime, the Coast Guard is also called upon to supplement the U.S. Navy and is primarily responsible for safeguarding American shores while the Navy projects power overseas. Yet, you might be surprised to find out that the Coast Guard has often seen combat, and it was an American Coast Guard vessel that spotted and fixed the location of the infamous German battleship Bismarck and sealed her fate during World War II. During peacetime, the Coast Guard is also who you'll be calling for if your ship runs into problems while far from shore. And there are few jobs in the world more dangerous than that of a Coast Guard rescue diver.
I've had to have the Coast Guard come and save me once when I was out on a boat with some family members. It's pretty cool getting on their boat, but
Especially those that operate in the infamous Bering Sea in Alaska. Coast Guard training is meant to prepare you for the realities of living in a ship, which means living in close quarters with a dozen or more people. Teamwork is number one in Coast Guard, and their training is focused on teaching recruits to resolve interpersonal conflicts and cooperate to achieve the task at hand. Coast Guard trainees must also be prepared to man cutters and destroyers during both peacetime and wartime patrols, and thus the training prepares them for service on warships of different sizes. Lasting 8 weeks, you'll be immediately thrust into team building exercises. In week 2, you'll start your physical training, starting by running a mile, and then begin training to pass your swimming assessment. You'll
don't start
eventually be
training
required to
until
jump
week
off an
2?
elevated platform into icy cold water and swim 100 meters, and then tread water for 5 minutes without a break in order to pass your training. The rest of your weeks will focus on learning how to navigate the world of the U.S. military, as well as classes in basic first aid and, you guessed it, teamwork. Number 3. U.S. Army. The Navy will get you there, the Air Force will keep you safe and crush your enemy from the sky, the Marines will kick open the door, but when it comes time to win a war, it's the U.S. Army you call on. The U.S. Army trains for one thing and one thing only: how to fight and defeat the largest militaries in the world. The original grunts, Army soldiers operate vast fleets of tanks, armored vehicles, attack helicopters,
they're gonna say the
and
Navy is
artillery
more
that make up the
has a
world's
tougher
most
basic
powerful
than the
fighting
Army?
force. Army basic
Huh.
training lasts 10 weeks and it's focused on building individual self-discipline and turning civilians into soldiers capable of holding the line against everything from enemy infantry to heavy armor. Basic combat training is thus divided into 3 phases: red, white, and blue. Each phase meant to evolve the competency of the recruit on their way to becoming a soldier. In the red phase, you'll learn how to operate as a team by being given impossible tasks meant to encourage teamwork. You'll also receive classroom training on military etiquette and topics such as race relations to fully integrate soldiers into an active army. You'll be doing extensive parade drill meant to instill strict discipline, as well as daily PT to continuously improve your physical fitness. Unarmed combat and training with pugil sticks will follow, and you'll be introduced to the basics of the M4 or M16 assault rifle. Finally, you'll culminate with a trip to the gas chamber to learn how to properly protect yourself during nuclear, biological, and chemical attacks. In the white phase, you'll be introduced to crew-served weapons such as the M50 caliber machine gun and the MK19 automatic grenade launcher. You'll also be spending a large amount of time at the firing range, becoming proficient with the M4 or M16. And you'll eventually be required to qualify on the weapon by hitting 28 out of 40 targets. In the blue phase, you'll be spending a lot of time out in the
man, we
field.
had to hit like 25 out of 30.
Training to operate in simulated forward deployed bases and learning basic land navigation. A highlight of the blue phase will be a field training exercise or FTX, where drill sergeants take a back seat and allow the platoon and squad leaders to navigate a combat scenario on their own, complete with simulated fire. An unsatisfactory performance here can see you redoing your week of training and denied advancement. Number
Damn.
2. U.S. Navy.
All right, so what I am going to say, though, is one thing is I do wish the Air Force did have a more physical aspect to basic training. Like, if it was an extra 2 weeks and we got to do more physical stuff, like when you're carrying the logs on your shoulders with your buddies and you have to make it in a certain time, or more obstacle course stuff, I wish we had to do that. But they don't want us to do that, I guess, just due to the fact that we're mainly, you know, an intelligence-based type branch. So, but I do wish it was tougher.
The U.S. Navy operates the most advanced fleet anywhere in the world, and as such places high standards on its recruits. Rising from the ashes of Pearl Harbor in World War II, the U.S. Navy rallied from that crushing defeat and destroyed one of the greatest naval powers in the world. To the Navy, it's a matter of personal pride that no enemy ever set foot on the US mainland or on the territory of its allies Canada or Mexico. Its fleets have ensured that any war has always been fought far from home, and its air power alone is as powerful as that of entire nations.
Yeah.
For the Navy, teamwork and attention to detail are
We'll never fight a
Not
war on
only
our own
must recruits handle the
soil.
pressures of working alongside hundreds of others in the tight confines of a modern warship, but they must maintain.
Let me phrase that. We'll never fight a war against other countries on our own soil, because we've fought our own country multiple times on our own soil.
A level of focus critical to success while handling the high technology assets of its various ships, subs, and planes, all while operating far from home and in potentially dangerous seas. Navy Boot Camp has a strong emphasis on physical training and lasts 8 weeks, all spent on the chilly shores of Lake Michigan. Recruits are immediately tested on their swimming ability, and any who fail to pass minimum standards are sidelined from their training and forced to undergo intensive swimming instruction, which can add to their overall stay in boot camp. Physical fitness is vital for the U.S. Navy, especially due to the fact that its sailors routinely operate in an environment where they could find themselves swimming for their lives at a moment's notice. As with all the other branches, you'll be undergoing many hours of classroom instruction, though perhaps not as much as the Air Force. You'll also be undertaking confidence and team-building exercises meant to teach you to be confident in the face of danger and work together with men and women who are just recently complete strangers. You'll undergo simulated shipboard disasters and undergo training on a land-bound training ship to learn the ins and outs of a war vessel. You'll also move to the firing range and learn how to operate the M16 or M4 rifle and a 12-gauge shotgun. One thing that sets Navy training apart from other services is the extensive amount of firefighting training you'll undergo. With fire being a fighting ship's most dangerous enemy, you'll undergo training to extinguish fires in a variety of situations, as well as how to navigate and escape smoke-filled compartments. You'll be expected to keep your cool under pressure, an ability which will be tested to the breaking point in Week 7's Battle Stations drills. Here you'll undergo 12 different scenarios which will test all of your learned skills to date, with you and your team being graded on each. Failure means you'll be forced to undergo additional training, and success leads to graduation. Number 1. U.S. Marine Corps. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we fight our country's battles on the land as on the sea. So goes the Marines' hymn, and highlights the diverse battlefields under which the American Marines have historically fought and won battles on. The U.S. Marine Corps is the world's premier expeditionary force, tasked with bringing heavy amounts of American firepower in a very quick manner to anywhere in the world. While it's the U.S. Army that wins wars, it's typically the Marines who kick open the door and allow them to do so, specializing in amphibious assault operations meant to take and hold hostile beaches so friendly forces can land and carry the battle inland. Lasting 12 weeks, Marine basic training is the most physically demanding of the 5 services, and this is reflected in the Day 1 focus on physical fitness. Split up into 3 phases, in Phase 1 you'll undergo a very rapid transition from civilian to Marine recruit, undergoing intense physical training and being introduced to the M16 or M4 assault rifle. The Marines believe that every Marine is a rifleman, meaning that no matter what your job ends up being in the Corps, from medical to services or mechanic, you're expected to maintain proficiency in the M16 and M4 assault rifles, which means a lot of time spent on the range. In Phase 2, you'll undergo further training in hand-to-hand
I just want to throw this out there. Whoever made the animation for this did a great job.
And focus on mastering your marksmanship abilities. You'll spend most of your time either at the range or in field training exercises, and will inevitably end up thrown into a gas chamber for nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare training. Phase 2 will culminate in the Crucible, a 54-hour event where you'll march 45 miles and be denied food and sleep. In your final phase, you'll undergo swim qualification training, and much like the Navy, failure here will mean additional training or failure to graduate. You'll also undergo drill and first aid training, as well as classroom training on Marine Corps history and values. What do you think is the toughest thing about boot camp? The physical or mental aspects? Have you ever been through one of these boot camps? Have you ever been through boot camp in another country? Let us know in the comments. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to...
Alright, so... I mean, yeah, obviously and what it seemed like is obviously the Marines was number 1, but the way they based it was for the Navy, for the Coast Guard, and the Air Force was just the length of it, because all they said that was a little bit harder for Coast Guard boot camp was that they swim. But, you know, I mean, I'm not just defending the Air Force. I know our basic training is easy as hell. I say it in pretty much every video, but I don't know. I mean, you learn a little bit about the inside. Now, I didn't know that they had extensive firefighting training in the Navy, but that's pretty cool that they talked about that. Whoever did the animation for this as well did a fantastic job. But I hope you guys did enjoy this. I hope it gave you a little background on what each branch does at basic training if you're trying to figure out which one you want to go with. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, please smash the like button. Leave a comment about which one you thought was the most difficult to go through and the most brutal. And subscribe if you're new. Turn on the post notification bell to know when we post a video. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out. I love you all. Stay safe and have a great day.